Story 1. What was this? About 12 years ago, my friend and I were walking around our neighborhood at 2 or 3 in the morning. It was a fairly normal area, developed in the 1980s. His family and mine moved into the area in the late 90s. And up until this happened to us, we'd never seen anything out of the ordinary. One night when we were both 15 or 16, we were walking around just talking. We weren't drinking or high, and we turned onto a street. And we both stopped dead when we noticed what appeared to be two figures standing under a street light. They looked to be solid black. Not shadows, but they were solid figures, but we couldn't make out any details. They were standing side by side with their bodies facing us, but their heads were turned toward each other. They appeared to be talking to each other, but we couldn't hear anything. It was dead silent. We both stopped to look at them, and we both stared for what was probably 5 seconds. But it felt like a few minutes. They turned their heads in unison and started to approach us. It didn't look like walking, but more like they were just gliding across the ground toward us. We turned and ran back to my house. Once we got away, I asked him what he saw. He described it to me, and it was the same thing I saw. We both saw the same thing. Nothing else like this has happened before or since, and I just want to find out what it was. Story 2. I think I saw a Jotun. So I was walking through the woods on my way to school. I am a Norse neo-pagan, so I see ravens often. But this one, it was different. It was dead, but not by natural causes. This thing was ripped apart, like really ripped apart. I hear singing from the trees, and I see shadows in my profile vision looking. I see a tall man, like at least 7 feet, standing there. He said I should not wander through the forest alone. He vanished. I ran to school and kept seeing him in the trees the whole day. Story 3. My mom saw a demon. This happened to my mom when she was a kid. Every weekend, her parents would take her and my uncle to visit her grandparents in a different state. Their house sat on Native American land. I think this is important. This piece of land had a ton of activity. Well, one night, she had a very vivid dream that involved her, her parents, and her aunt. In the dream, the house was lifted by a tornado. The aunt was freaking out, ran out the front door, and was impaled by a tree stump. Obviously, when my mom woke up, she was freaking out. When she told my grandmother, she brushed it off as a wild imagination and a crazy nightmare. Fast forward to when they're at the grandparents' house. Her and one of her cousins was wandering around the property and playing. When they walked up to a tree stump, this is where it starts getting freaky. When they saw it, they saw what looked like her aunt, impaled by the tree stump. Her red hair was waving up and down, and her fingers were longer than normal. She was smiling and waving at my mom and her cousin. My mom looked at her cousin, who was equally mortified, and they ran to the house. When they got to the house, they saw the aunt, so they obviously knew it wasn't really her. And absolutely no one believed either of them. She has plenty of other stories from around this time. We'll post more soon. Story 4. My recent experience with a demon and a ghost. I posted this in a sleep paralysis group, but I decided I would share it here as well. This morning it was still dark outside. I woke up and saw some type of translucent shadow in the mirror. It looked to be a ghost person. I was half asleep but turned on the flashlight on my phone, and it disappeared after about 10 seconds. I did get a good look at it, but I was half asleep. I fell back to sleep and then woke up to hear a boy talking to me. Don't remember what he said. He was also screaming and crying. Very scary. I fell back to sleep for the second time, and then woke up once again. But this time I could not move, and there was a huge black shadow, long arms, skinny, but very tall, no face, was in the corner of my bed staring and hovering over me. I couldn't move, but I remember crying. I'm not sure if I was crying out loud or in my head. I closed my eyes, and in that moment I prayed and asked God to protect me. After about 30 seconds to a minute, I was able to get up out of bed. But holy shit, that was so scary. I had 3 different interactions. I've been waking up for the past 2 years with scratches all over my legs and sometimes my arms. Story 5. Something called my name in the mountains. Back in 2021, my family took a trip to Lake Sanitla in North Carolina. A beautiful lake that's rich in Native American history and surrounded by mountain trails. We decided to go on one of these trails on overcast day. I am not an athletic person and suffer from asthma, so I was behind the rest of my family by myself. About almost halfway through the hike I heard my sister yell my birth name, but it sounded like it was off the trail. She never calls me by real name, just my nickname I've had since I was a baby. It sounded like she was scared, so I was very tempted to run off and find her, but I knew my sister wasn't stupid. She wouldn't go off the trail even in case of an emergency. I quickly caught up to the rest of my family, and my sister was there with them, resting on some rocks next to a waterfall, chatting away and taking pictures. I asked my sister if she had called my name. She didn't know what I was talking about. She had been talking to our dad the whole time. I don't know what called my name that day, but I'm glad I didn't listen to it. Who knows what would have happened to me? I haven't been to that trail since this encounter. I don't have a clue what called my name. If you're educated on Appalachian folklore, please give me some insight on what happened to me. Story 6. Black Shadow or Demon. I grew up in a very small rural area that was once a coal camp in the 1920s to 1950s. I spent my childhood and teen years there in the 80s to early 90s. My grandmother, who lived there, said she remembered looking out her window one evening and saw this black shadow thing running all along the hillside to different houses. My brother was walking home late one evening and saw this thing sitting in a tree watching him. But the scariest was my younger brother said he had his bedroom window open one day empty. He heard a voice call his name from outside. He looked, and there it was sitting on an embankment near his house looking at him. There have been countless stories of it from my family. Both of my brothers said it had sorta red eyes. We have a big family and all of us have seen things in this area. I've seen to full body apparitions. Story 7. Haunted House. Hi. I have been living in this home for 2 to 3 years now, and it has been completely fine until recently. I have been hearing footsteps, knocks, slams, bangs, and strange electronic noises that I have never heard before. However, each day something stranger happens. For example, I thought I heard one of the door handles jiggling, and as I walked over to check it out, it had stopped and it was practically hanging off the door loose. As I sat back down, I heard more footsteps upstairs and downstairs. And then suddenly I heard a footstep go towards one of my air fresheners. Goes off every hour or so, or you can tap a button for it to go off. And it had sprayed air freshener. But then I heard another footstep, and then the one in my living room went off literally a second after. They never go off at the same time. One is in the kitchen, one is in my living room. I have also been noticing my phone battery die very quickly. But when I'm out, it can hold battery perfectly fine. I also see a few shadows every now and again, and hear very loud and clear knocks in sets of 3. I was just wondering what this could be and if it's anything evil. I did use the Ouija board last year, but never started noticing, hearing things until recent. Also, the first day things started to happen, one of my doors closed right in front of me. Story 8. My grandpa. I hope this can make somebody smile. Never knew my dad growing up. Had my mom and my grandparents, my papa being my father figure. I was really close to him. Never told us about his cancer. Till he had about a month left to live. Didn't see the signs. He hid it so well and then was just too far gone. Was around 8 at the time and things were rough. I'd been paranoid and sleeping with hammers and screwdrivers under my pillow in case somebody broke in. Because I felt it was my responsibility to protect everyone. Swear in my life, about 2 weeks after his funeral, he spoke to me, woke me up at about 2 in the morning, and said everything will be okay, that he wouldn't let anything happen to us. I finally got to feel at peace that night. Story 9. The day I seen the devil. So it started when my son was about 5 years old. It was already night and he was playing in the living room down the hallway when all of a sudden, he comes running scared, pointing towards the room and hallway saying he seen someone ugly. And it scared him, so he sat on a couch and was just quiet. I went to the room and checked, and he had said it had already left through the window. So I didn't think much of it. That same night I kept thinking, what did my son see? So I fell asleep on the opposite side of the bed close to the window. And I remember I was sleeping and I woke up all of a sudden. I looked up. And I seen legs standing there. The legs were thick horse feet and goat feet, and I remember seeing a long tail. Like the panther's tail, it was so long and curled up. It was red in color, like a deep red, like the colors of a fresh brick house. Very vivid color. I didn't see any further, only till his waist. I hurried up and covered my face. But I did tell it in my head to go away and leave us alone, that he was not welcomed here. So I finally had seen what my son seen. Ever since I haven't seen him again. Story 10. Demonic Growl. My family moved into a 1895 Victorian home in 2009, not knowing that it was very, very haunted. One night in 2011, I couldn't sleep. I felt like someone was watching me. I opened my eyes and saw that my attic door was slowly opening. Foog no. I ran to my sister's room across the hall and told her what had happened. She then pointed to the attic door above her closet and I saw that it was open as well. We chose to sleep in the living room after that shit. As I was going to turn the light off, we heard a growl. It was definitely human and very deep. I felt cold air blow into my ear. I'm still traumatized after 10 years. We refused to talk about it. The house was directly in front of a cemetery and was used as a showroom for coffins. We knew that the previous owners had gone bankrupt and lost everything, but then we realized the house was the problem. My whole family had encounters hearing a woman saying hello after knocking on the door. Attic doors opening by themselves even though they were latched. The house seemed to drain all of the good energy out of my family. My family was close, happy and kind to each other before we moved in, but within 2 years, everybody that my mother had developed depression and attempted suicide at least once. Things have gotten better since we moved out 3 years ago. But our mental health has only slightly gotten better. I know this isn't very believable, but it genuinely happened. Story 11. My personal paranormal experience. So this all happened I think around 2 years ago. It still made me a firm believer in ghosts, spirits. The story is quite short, but there was no explanation for what happened to me and my friend that night. We had decided to have a sleepover at her grandparents' house because her family was looking after their house while they were away on vacation. She had always told me she believed the house was haunted and I didn't really think or ask about if she had any experiences there herself. The night was going well with no incidents, and we were just watching movies and playing with her grandparents' dog. Eventually we both decided to head to bed, so we put the dog in its crate and headed to bed. We talked for a bit and then turned the lights off and tried to sleep. We were sharing a room and had the door shut. A minute or two after, we both fell silent but were still awake. We both heard scratching. Not the type of scratching where a dog scratches at the door to come in. The type of scratching where a cat walks on carpet and its claws dig into the carpet as it walks. It walked from the door to the other side of the room, around the bed. We both were quite literally paralyzed with fear. After it stopped, we both whispered to each other in the dark, "Did you hear that?" Both scared. We decided it would be better to sleep with the lights on. Later that night my friend felt super nauseous, which I still am not sure was related to the scratching, but I definitely do think was unusual. Sorry if this didn't make much sense. I'm not the best at recounting stories, but if anyone has any idea of what type of spirit, ghost, this could have been, I would love to hear. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe for more.